welcome to Bake to the Future, the show where we examine what is happening in the baking industry with a future-focused lens. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
Today, we are talking about a pressing and time-sensitive issue facing our industry, the new Sesame allergen labeling law and its impact on the baking industry.
We covered this topic last year, but now the enforcement date is quickly approaching, January 1st, 2023, and we all know it's going to be here before we know it. And this is an important date and an important topic since sesame is on top of and inside of so many baked goods like buns, crackers, and more.
And by way of background, in early 2021, sesame became the 9th allergen added to the list of major allergens that must be labeled on food packaging. It has been 10 years since a major allergen had been declared in the U.S., and the other 8 allergens are dairy, wheat, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, fish, and shellfish.
And to help us break it all down, today with us is Rasma Zvaners, the Vice President of Regulatory and Technical Services. Welcome, Rasma.
Thank you.
So a little bit of a refresher for us might come in handy. And also, I want to spell something out. I think what we'll be talking about today, when we might say it a few times, is it's called the FASTER Act. And that actually stands for something. It's Food Allergy Safety Treatment Education and Research Act of 2021.
Correct.
So let's get a little bit of a refresher to bring everybody up to speed on the FASTER Act's timeline and when everything goes into effect and what people should be expecting.
Sure. Well, Katie, I'm impressed that you remembered the acronym.
Oh, I have it written down. Trust, because
Anyway.
I think I threw you for a loop last time you were on the show. You're like, it is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
correct. Anyway, you're right. April 2021, the FASTER Act was signed into law. And basically, this was an act of Congress adding an additional allergen, sesame, to the list of allergens. And what that basically means is that effective on January 1 of 2023, all products introduced or delivered for introduction into interstate commerce that contain sesame must have sesame listed either in the body of the ingredient statement by the common name such as sesame, or in a separate allergen contains statement. So for example, contains sesame. So that's quickly approaching considering we're already well into the first quarter of 2022.
And right now, how is sesame being labeled before this is coming into effect?
You know, I think it probably depends, and I don't want to speak for all sectors, but because it hasn't been an allergen, I'm not certain how much allergen labeling has been out there prior to it being added.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like it's going to be a big change if you do sesame in your products.
It is. I think, anytime that an allergen is added to the list of the Food Allergen Labeling and Consumer Protection Act of 2004, it's a significant change. I think what makes sesame a bit more unique for the baking sector, and perhaps in some cases more challenging, is that these are tiny little seeds that can get everywhere. So there's a lot of assessment and, companies are currently doing their risk assessments, determining what the risk may be, trying to figure out, what are some of the things that they can put in place to incorporate sesame into their current allergen programs, which is the route that one company which is expected to take.
And so, it could have a pretty big impact as far as, kind of how plants even operate then?
So it can. I think, one of the challenges, and, we've had through our Food Technical Regulatory Affairs Professional Group, we've had several conversations now as, the baking sector around this topic. And, our council at our last meeting asked, what makes this allergen different than others? And I guess in my mind, it's sort of between two different things. We're used to dealing with, flour, eggs, soy, which is, comes in different formats. But then you have peanut butter. And to me, sesame kind of falls between the two. For purposes of peanut butter, we have some members that have peanut butter products, bars, cookies, etc., that have specifically dedicated lines just for peanut producing or tree nut producing products. But that's, a little different than the way we've typically dealt with allergens. So there's a lot of discussion among the industry to better understand how these allergen changeovers can take place. So in other words, when you're changing operations from a bun that contains sesame to, say, a bun that doesn't contain sesame or any other product that may or may not contain sesame, how long is that going to take to go ahead and make sure that you've cleaned the line to the extent that FDA would be pleased if they came through on an inspection? And I think that's it's causing some angst and it's making us rethink maybe the way that we've done things to date.
Right. So it sounds like it's not just about putting a label on a packaging. It's bigger than that. It's about maybe reworking how the products are made in the facilities.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think some of the things that we've talked about is, when for those that are manufacturing sesame, it's everything from pulling all of your engineering, production people together, your research and development, and, looking at your operations and determining, where do we put sesame on the specific product or in the specific product? Can we put that further down the line? It all comes back to once you finish making that product, that you have to make sure that you sanitize the line so that it's considered allergen clean. And, the unfortunate piece about sesame seeds is that they're tiny, they go everywhere. You can go through, visually inspect with flashlights above the belt, below the belt, in all the nooks and crannies. And yet when you turn everything on to start that next round of operations, here come the sesame seeds down the line. So I think, our members are working very diligently to see what options they have to better understand, how can I make changes within my operations? Or is it, do I move sesame operations to one part of the plant? So I think there's a lot of angst and discussion around this topic. Now, recognizing that this isn't as easy as it appears to be. So it does take some time and consideration. And since we're well into 2022, as you said, the 2023 deadline is not that far off. So, an opportunity that I'm going to take here is to make a selfless pitch for an upcoming webinar that we have in April. I believe it's on the 14th. Double check your calendars when you look at the information that you get that ABA sends out on a weekly basis. But we're again going to do a deeper dive into sesame and what bakers should be thinking about, considering everything from sanitation practices to dedicated lines. Maybe talking a little bit more about those that deal with peanuts, tree nuts, how, what are things that they're thinking about, or, what are best practices there that may be helpful for those that have sesame operations. So we'll be joined by Dr. Joe Ballmer with the Food Allergen Research and Resource Program out of the University of Nebraska. FARP is viewed as a global expert in the allergen space, so he always brings very useful information, and he'll specifically be talking about the sensitivity of sesame and ongoing research in that space. And then we will also be joined by Dr. Brent Koblish from the Atchison Group, TAG, who will be talking about, best practices. What are things that people should be thinking about for their changeovers? What is considered clean? What's the best way that you can work around trying to inspect to make sure that your equipment is clean? And I just think it's another opportunity for our bakers to come together, ask good questions, and perhaps take away some information that may help them as this January 1, 2023 deadline comes up.
Well, thank you for that. And it's nice to hear that my alma mater, the University of Nebraska, is an expert in allergen information. I had no idea. So now I learned something new today.
One of the other pieces of information that we're hopeful to wrap up in the next weeks and shortly provide to our members after the ABA convention is an updated ABA allergen guide, just talking about allergens as a whole, trying to put it into, one easy place, easy access for members to get the information that they need about allergens, some best practices, and then also providing resources for them.
Yes, you beat me to my question. That was going to be what do we have that could help our members? And it sounds like it's the webinar and then a future document guide that can help them.
Yep.
What are some other industries that are affected by the sesame allergen labeling? Have we been talking to anybody, working with anybody?
I think, clearly the snack sector is one that comes to mind for me. One of the other pieces that, a timely intro from my to-do list today is we are working on some clarification that we hope to send to FDA, asking them about the deadline specifically. I don't think FDA has a lot of flexibility, but we'll be reaching out to our Food and Beverage Issue Alliance partners to see if there are others that want to join this ABA letter. And basically what we're asking for is clarification, because you often may make a frozen product that's made, say, in November, but it's not going to hit the consumer or food service shelves until, March of 2023. And we're hoping that FDA can provide a little bit of flexibility to state, that, I don't know, in some cases, for example, with Nutrition Facts Panel, they did provide some enforcement discretion while past the deadline. So we're exploring that option, and we'll be seeing what other food industry partners we may have and trying to get that clarification from FDA.
So just to clarify, the new labeling for Sesame, that's for products on retail shelves and for food service?
Everything.
Everything
from, think about walking up and down your grocery aisle to sitting down in a restaurant to school cafeterias, hospital cafeterias, everything.
Well, and we don't get labeling changes every day. So I think that what I'm sure this won't be the last discussion we have on this, is it looks like there's still a few loose ends to clarify and still a lot of work to be done. So,
yeah, and absolutely, I would encourage our members to engage. We have now put Sesame as a standing topic for our Food Technical Regulatory Affair professional group sessions, similar to what we did when bioengineering and bioengineering labeling was a topic. So stay tuned, and we'll continue to update them as we come up with more information and hopefully segue into January with minimal bumps along the way.
Great. Well, I think that's a good place to conclude this discussion. Thank you so much, Rasma, for joining us and walking us through this issue.
Happy to do it. And if you have any more Sesame questions, I'm happy to answer as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And our listeners can let us know what you thought of the show by emailing hello@americanbakers.org or leave us a voicemail at baketothefuture.org and let us know what you think of our new format. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, or Ghana.